They say blood doesn't lie. But mine did, for 19 years. I was standing in a sterile lab, the kind that smelled like bleach and truth, staring down at a piece of paper that shattered everything I thought I knew. One page. A few lines. And my whole life came undone like a cheap sweater pulled at the wrong thread. My name's Jamie. 19 years old. College freshman. Pretty average kid, I thought. Grew up with my sister, Rose, and our adoptive parents, Diane and Walter. The story I'd always been told was that Rose and I had been abandoned by junkie parents. Diane and Walter took us in when I was a baby and raised us as their own. Rose was the cool older sister, the one who snuck me candy when Mom said no, who punched a kid in 6th grade for calling me a bastard, who told me bedtime stories about made-up kingdoms and warriors who never quit. She was 17 when I was 5. More of a second mom than a sibling, but we never said it out loud. But now, standing in that lab with a DNA test result in my hand and a knot in my stomach, none of that made sense anymore. The results said Rose wasn't my sister. She was my biological mother. I didn't get the DNA test because I had suspicions. It was just a dumb Christmas gift from my friend Kyle, find your roots, or whatever the slogan was. We were messing around, bored during winter break. Thought we'd see if I had some Viking blood or maybe a trace of royalty. We sent the samples off, forgot about it. Then a month later, I got a message, we found a close relative in our system, your aunt. I clicked. Name, Margaret Henley. 43. Lives in Arizona. I didn't know a Margaret. Not on my mom or dad's side, because as far as I knew, I didn't have a mom or dad. Just those two faceless drug addicts Rose told me about when I was a kid. She'd said they were gone, out of the picture, dead maybe. Never looked back. But now, here was Margaret. My aunt. Who apparently wasn't dead, or on drugs. She sent a message through the service, I've been looking for you for a long time. We need to talk. I called her that night, my hands shaking like I'd had 6 espressos. She answered on the first ring. Jamie? Her voice cracked like she'd been crying. Yes. She didn't even say hello. She never told you, did she? I said nothing. That was answer enough. I'm your aunt, she said. Rose is your mother. She was 15 when she had you. She ran away after a fight with our parents. We thought you were both dead. I didn't remember much from before we got adopted. I had a few fuzzy images, the smell of Marlboros and grease, the sound of sirens, a ratty teddy bear that disappeared one night and never came back. But Diane and Walter gave us a clean slate. They were the kind of people who didn't talk much about the past. They called it water under the bridge. Rose used to say it was better we didn't remember. The people we came from didn't want us, she'd tell me when I was small. But the people we're with now do. That's what matters. I believed her. I believed everything she ever told me. Now, I didn't know what was real. It took me a week to build up the courage to talk to her. I didn't sleep. Barely ate. I stared at that DNA result like it might change if I blinked enough. Kyle was the one who finally snapped me out of it. We were sitting in his car, engine running, outside my apartment. You gonna keep walking around with this storm in your head, or are you gonna go find the truth? He asked. You owe it to yourself. And to her. I don't know what to say, I mumbled. Say what you're feeling. Even if it's ugly. So I did. I went to Rose's place on a rainy Sunday. She still lived in the same cramped apartment on Hawthorne, the one with the squeaky stairs and the weird smell in the hallway. She opened the door in sweatpants and a hoodie, no makeup, hair pulled back. Her face went pale when she saw me. Jamie? I held up the paper. We need to talk. We sat at her kitchen table. The rain tapped against the window like a nervous hand. She stared at the DNA result, silent for a long time. "I never wanted you to find out like this," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was 15, scared, and stupid. And I didn't want you to grow up thinking your life started in pain." "So you lied?" She flinched. "Yes. And then she told me everything. She got pregnant the summer before sophomore year. The guy, never said his name, bailed the second he found out. Her parents were furious. Said she'd brought shame to the family. Tried to force her into a closed adoption. She refused. There was a huge blowout. Her dad slapped her. Her mom called her damaged goods. So she ran. She ended up sleeping in shelters, working under-the-table jobs, lying her way through school forms. She made up a story about 2 orphans, a teenage sister and her baby brother, abandoned by drug-addict parents. Diane and Walter believed it. Took them in. She kept the lie going for 19 years. "For your sake," she said, tears in her eyes. "I wanted you to have a normal life. Not be the kid of a runaway teen mom." I didn't speak. I couldn't. She reached out. I pulled back. "I know you're angry," she said softly. "You have every right to be." I left without saying another word. Back in my apartment, I stared at the ceiling for hours. Thought about every scraped knee she bandaged, every birthday cake she baked, every time she stood up for me when no one else would. Thought about the nights she worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. The way she used to fall asleep sitting up, homework in one hand and my bottle in the other. She lied, yeah. But she also saved me. And I wasn't a kid anymore. It was my turn to decide what kind of man I wanted to be. A few days later, I went back. She opened the door, her eyes red and tired. "I forgive you," I said. "You messed up. But you also gave me everything." She didn't cry. Just nodded, and pulled me into a hug. It was the first time I called her Mom. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. You ever look at an old photo and realize you've been lied to twice? Once when it was taken. And again every time you looked at it without knowing the truth. That's how it was when I found the box. It was about a week after I called Rose Mom for the first time. We were still tiptoeing around each other, learning how to breathe in this new world where the truth finally had a name. We weren't quite mother and son yet, not in the way people mean it. But something had shifted. She invited me over for dinner. Said she was making chili, just like the kind we used to eat when the heat got shut off in the winter. Back then it felt like survival food. Now it tasted like a memory. We were eating on the couch, watching reruns, when she said it. "There's something I want to show you. Been hiding it for years." She got up, walked into the hall closet, and pulled out a worn shoebox. Set it on the coffee table like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Pictures," she said. "Letters. Stuff I kept. Stuff I couldn't throw away." I opened the lid and was hit with the smell of old paper and time. There were photos of me as a baby, ones I'd never seen before, not even in Diane and Walter's albums. One of me in Rose's arms, both of us wrapped in a threadbare blanket on a park bench. One of her pregnant, looking like a scared kid wearing her father's oversized coat. And one photo that stopped me cold. 3 people. Rose, a younger woman who looked like her twin, and a man with cruel eyes and a cigarette hanging from his lip. "That's your grandmother and grandfather," she said quietly. "And your aunt. Margaret." I stared at the photo. "You said they were dead." "I wanted them to be," she said, not flinching. "After what they did to me, to us. I buried them in my mind." I looked closer at Margaret. Same eyes as mine. Same crooked front tooth. "She's the one who found me," I said. Through the DNA site. Rose nodded. She always had a big heart. Too big, maybe. She tried to protect me. But she was just a kid too. Couldn't stop them. I didn't ask what they'd done. Not yet. But the way her jaw clenched told me it was bad. Did they ever try to find you? I asked. Her voice went flat. Once. When I was still pregnant. My dad tracked me to a shelter in Portland. Said he was taking me home. Said he'd fix everything, that I could give you up, pretend it never happened. I told him to go to hell. She looked at me, eyes dark. He slapped me in front of the whole shelter. Security dragged him out. I never saw him again. There was a long silence. Then I said, I want to meet Margaret. Rose stiffened. Why? Because I need to know where I came from. The whole story. Not just the parts you think I can handle. She sighed. She lives in Arizona. Haven't spoken to her since. God, probably your first birthday. But I've still got her number. I wrote it down that night. Didn't call. Not right away. A few days passed. I walked around in a fog. Went to class, went to work, smiled at people when I had to. But something had cracked open inside me, and the air was different now. I'd lived my whole life in a house built on stories. And now every word, every memory, felt like it needed rechecking. Kyle noticed first. You're quiet, he said. Like, haunted quiet. I shrugged. Just got a lot on my mind. He didn't push. Just said, when you're ready to talk, I got beer and ears. That night I stood on my balcony, staring out at the city lights, holding the piece of paper with Margaret's number on it. I told myself it was just a phone call. No big deal. But it felt like opening a door to a room I'd spent my whole life pretending didn't exist. I dialed. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Hi, this is Jamie. Jamie Henley. Silence. Then a soft gasp. Jamie. Oh my God. I wasn't sure you'd call. I wasn't sure either. I've waited 19 years for this. Her voice cracked, and I heard something in it that stopped me cold. Guilt. Real, bone-deep guilt. I think I need to hear everything, I said. No sugarcoating. No half-truths. Just, everything. Okay, she said. But not over the phone. Come to Arizona. Stay with me. I'll tell you everything. And I'll show you where the story really starts. I didn't tell Rose about the trip. Didn't feel right yet. I just told her I needed a weekend away to clear my head. She hugged me tight at the bus station. Said to call if I needed anything. I promised I would. She touched my cheek and whispered, "Be safe." I nodded. Didn't know then what I was walking into. Didn't know what kind of secret still waited for me out in that desert heat. Arizona hit me like a punch to the lungs. Dry air, too bright sun, and silence that settled into your bones. I got off the bus in Tucson with nothing but a backpack, a fading notebook, and a head full of ghosts. Margaret picked me up in an old Subaru, the kind with bumper stickers that looked like they'd survived a war. She looked just like the photo, older now, more weathered, but the same eyes as Rose. Same eyes as me. She didn't speak right away. Just hugged me. Not tight. Not dramatic. Just long enough to say, I'm sorry. I'm here. Her house was small. Beige stucco, desert plants out front, a wind chime that never stopped singing. Inside was cooler, filled with books and the smell of cinnamon tea. You hungry? She asked. Starving. We ate grilled cheese on paper plates. No small talk. Just chewing and watching each other like strangers who somehow already knew too much. When we were done, she poured us both tea and sat across from me at the kitchen table. No ceremony. Just the truth. It was 2005, she began. Rose had just turned 15. She was smart, funny, stubborn as hell. Our parents hated that about her. What were they like? I asked. Cold, she said. Religious in the cruel way. Image over love. Reputation over family. Everything had to be perfect, and Rose wasn't. She paused, sipped her tea. She came home crying one day. Wouldn't say what happened. Locked herself in the bathroom for hours. Finally, she told me. She was pregnant. My throat tightened. What did your parents do? Exploded. Screamed. Called her a whore. Said she was going to ruin the family. My father tried to force her into a home for unwed mothers, one of those places where they take the baby and pretend it never happened. I nodded. I knew that kind of story. But she wouldn't go, Margaret said. So he hit her. Hard. I still remember the sound. My mother just stood there. Didn't stop him. My hands curled into fists. So she ran, Margaret said. Packed a bag, climbed out the window, disappeared. I didn't see her again until last week. When your name popped up. She stood and walked over to a small cabinet. Pulled out a dusty envelope and handed it to me. Inside were 5 letters. All unopened. All addressed to Margaret, postmarked from Oregon. The handwriting was Rose's. She tried, I whispered. I was away at college, Margaret said. Didn't check my P.O. box for months. By the time I did, she was gone again. I held the letters like they were something sacred. Like they could fill the hole inside me. Why didn't you come looking? I asked. I did, she said. But she was hiding. And I think part of her didn't want to be found. Not until she thought it was safe. And now? Margaret looked me dead in the eye. Now you've blown it wide open. And I don't think she was ready for that. Later that night, she pulled out an old photo album. Pages stuck together with heat and time. There was one picture that stopped me cold. A boy. My age. My face, almost. Standing next to a man with the same cruel eyes from the earlier photo. Who's that? I asked. Margaret hesitated. Closed the album. That's not a story I can tell. Not yet. Why? Because Rose needs to tell it. And because some stories, they're like snakes. You touch them wrong, they bite. I didn't sleep much that night. Because now there were 2 mysteries, the lie Rose told to protect me, and the one she was still hiding. I stared at the boy in the photograph long after Margaret had gone to bed. His face haunted me, familiar in ways that made my stomach twist. Same jawline, same smirk, same dimple that only showed when he wasn't trying. It wasn't me. But it could have been. I slipped the photo out of the album and flipped it over. In Rose's messy scrawl, one word was written on the back, Evan. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Margaret didn't bring it up. She just handed me coffee and asked if I wanted to see where we grew up. We drove past the ghost of a childhood I never had, the rusted swing set, the old school with peeling paint, the convenience store with bars on the windows. It all looked like a place that had survived something violent and never quite recovered. At one point, we passed a church. Big white cross. Empty parking lot. That's where it all started, Margaret said. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. That afternoon, I called Rose. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, she said, voice low. I saw a picture, I said. Of a boy named Evan. Silence. Rose? She exhaled. I was hoping you wouldn't see that yet. Who is he? She paused so long I thought the call had dropped. He's your brother. There's a kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it guts it. My throat was dry. You had another kid? I was 17, she said. Living in a group home. I met someone. We were stupid, reckless. He didn't stick around. I was barely listening. You didn't tell me. Because I lost him, she said. CPS took him when he was 2. Said I wasn't stable. Said I was unfit. I never got him back. I felt like I'd been punched. So there's someone out there, I said slowly, who looks like me. Who is me, in a way. And I've never met him. I didn't think I deserved to be his mother after that, she whispered. So I stopped trying. When I hung up, I didn't know who I was angry at. Rose? Myself? The world? Margaret sat beside me on the porch, watching the desert fade into dusk. I didn't know about Evan, she said quietly. She never told me. I nodded. Couldn't speak. You want to find him? I didn't answer. Just stared out at the horizon, where the sun was bleeding out behind the mountains. Some part of me already knew I'd try. But I didn't know what I'd find. Or what he'd think of the brother who had everything he lost. I spent the next week pretending I wasn't unraveling. Smiled at Margaret's jokes. Helped her with the groceries. Watched old westerns with the sound too low. But every night, I stared at that photo of Evan, the ghost of a brother I'd never known, and asked the same question, what if I had been enough for her to try harder? Margaret caught me with the photo one morning. Said nothing. Just poured coffee and slid a manila folder across the table. What's this? Everything I could find. Inside were printouts, adoption records, foster placements, half-redacted reports. Some of the papers looked like they'd been through 5 fax machines and a house fire. But they all pointed to one name. Evan R. Henley. Born, July 23, 2007. Taken into custody, September 2009. Final placement, foster family in Flagstaff. I looked up at her. How the hell did you get this? She gave me a tired smile. I know people who owe me favors. And I never forgot his name. The next day, I took a bus north. Flagstaff was colder, quieter. Pine trees instead of cacti. Mountains rising like the backs of sleeping giants. I'd never been there, but it felt familiar, like a dream I'd had a long time ago. The foster agency was in a beige office park behind a dentist's office. Looked like the kind of place that sold timeshares and disappointment. I walked in, heart pounding, palms sweaty. The woman at the front desk didn't smile. Can I help you? I'm looking for someone. His name's Evan Henley. He was in the system around 2009. She narrowed her eyes. You family? Yes. Prove it. I pulled out my ID, then the DNA result that tied me to Rose. She skimmed the paper, then gave me a look like I'd handed her a bucket of snakes. You're his brother? I think so. She typed something into her computer. Her expression changed. You need to talk to someone upstairs. Wait here. 10 minutes later, I was in a windowless office with a man named Harris, thin, gray-haired, eyes like a hawk. Evan was adopted in 2011, he said. By the Reynolds family. Good people. Stable. No history of abuse or relocation. My chest tightened. Is he still with them? Yes. Can I contact him? Harris folded his hands. He's 17 now. A minor until next July. We don't make contact without the family's consent. But he's my brother. He didn't flinch. And for the past 10 years, he's lived a life where that wasn't true. That landed like a slap. So I don't exist to him. It's not about existence. It's about stability. We don't throw kids into emotional chaos because someone shares their blood. I felt heat rise in my face. He deserves to know. Maybe, Harris said. But that decision isn't yours. I walked out of that office like a man being exiled. Angry. Ashamed. Hollow. Margaret called that night. Did you find him? Yes. Did you see him? No. Silence. You gonna tell Rose? I looked at the photo in my hand, Evan on a swing, laughing, frozen in time. Not yet, I said. Some truths cut deeper than lies. I told myself I just wanted to see him. Not talk. Not interfere. Just lay eyes on the kid who shared my blood, carried my name, and lived a life that might have been mine. It was a lie. But at least it was a quiet one. It took 3 days to find the Reynolds house. Flagstaff's not a big town, and with enough time on public Wi-Fi and a half-dozen polite lies about looking up an old friend, I found an address. A ranch-style house with a red front door and wind chimes shaped like music notes. Neat lawn. Basketball hoop over the garage. A good life. I parked across the street just after school let out. At 3:41 p.m. he stepped off the bus. Tall, lean, a little slouched. Hoodie pulled over a head of messy black hair. Backpack slung low. He looked like me at that age, or like someone I'd dreamed I was. I didn't breathe. He walked up the driveway, kicked at a rock, then disappeared inside. I stayed in my car until it got dark. Just watching. Just wondering. Who did he think he was? Did he know he was adopted? Did he ever wonder who his birth parents were? Did he miss something he didn't even know he'd lost? The next day, I came back. This time I brought binoculars. Not proud of that, felt like a creep. But I couldn't help it. I needed to know more. At 7 a.m. he came out with a guitar case. Walked 2 blocks, met a girl in a beanie who smacked his arm and made him laugh. They walked together, close but not touching. At 3:45 p.m. he was back. Played basketball alone in the driveway until someone, his mom, I guessed, brought him a bottle of water. He hugged her. No hesitation. No performance. It hit me like a punch, he was happy. Truly, deeply happy. That night, I called Margaret. I found him. Silence. Jamie. I didn't talk to him. I just watched. Still. I know. I know how it sounds. But he's got a life. Friends. Family. It's good. I saw it. Margaret's voice was quiet. So what now? I leave him alone, I said. Because for once, maybe the lie worked out. I meant it. For about 12 hours. Then I went back. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I'd catch him alone. Maybe I wanted a sign, something divine and obvious to tell me what to do. Instead, I got headlights. I was standing across the street again when a car pulled up behind me. Cop lights. Just my luck. The officer knocked on my window. You live around here? No. Just visiting. Visiting who? I swallowed. Old family friend. Got a name? I gave him Margaret's name. He looked skeptical, asked for ID, ran it. Came back 5 minutes later. Jamie Henley, he said. From Tucson. Yes, sir. You've been parked here 4 times in the last week. Reynolds' family called it in. Said someone's watching their house. I froze. I wasn't gonna do anything. You need to leave, he said. And if you come back, it'll be trespassing. You understand me? I nodded. Go home. I drove back to Tucson that night. Didn't stop. Didn't sleep. When I got to Margaret's, she opened the door and just stared at me. You look like hell. I saw him smile, I said. He's okay. Good, she said. Now let him be. The next morning, I woke to a knock. Margaret handed me a letter. No return address. Just my name in blocky handwriting. Inside was a single sheet. You scared the hell out of my parents. What do you want from me? It was signed. Evan. I read that letter 10 times. It wasn't angry, not exactly. It was blunt. Defensive. But I saw through it, the way you recognize your own reflection in a cracked mirror. There was fear behind those words. Not of me. Of what I might represent. I wrote back the next day. No big confessions. No sob story. Just. I'm not here to wreck your life. I don't want anything from you. I just needed to see that you were okay. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Jamie. I left out the part about being his brother. Figured that much was already circling his mind like vultures. Margaret mailed it for me. Said nothing, but her eyes lingered on the envelope like it might explode. A week passed. Nothing. 2 weeks. Still nothing. I started packing. Figured it was time to head home, face Rose, and deal with the silence that now stretched between us like barbed wire. Then, just before dawn on a Sunday, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. One message. Can you meet me? Below it, an address. A coffee shop in Flagstaff. No name. But I knew who it was. I got there early. Sat at a table near the back, heart doing that slow, brutal drumbeat it always did when something big was coming. I didn't touch my coffee. He walked in 5 minutes late. Wiry. Sharp around the edges. Dressed in a hoodie and jeans, guitar strap still over one shoulder. His eyes scanned the place fast, the way a kid does when he's not sure he's safe. Then they landed on me. We locked eyes. No smile. No nod. Just a long, searching look. He sat down across from me. You really do look like me, he said. You too. Silence. You're my brother? Half, I said. Same mom. She alive? I nodded. Yeah. Her name's Rose. He flinched. They told me my birth mom didn't want me. She fought for you, I said. But she was 17. They said she was unstable. Took you away. He didn't answer. I waited. Then he said, you came to my house. I know. I shouldn't have. He stared at the table. My mom was crying. My dad was furious. Said you were stalking me. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't know how to do this. There's no handbook. No, he said. There isn't. We talked for an hour. Surface stuff. Music. School. He played guitar, liked old punk records. Wanted to study engineering. Said he sucked at math, but he liked building things. He asked about me. I kept it simple. College. Raised by Rose and our adoptive parents. Told him he got the better deal. He smirked. Maybe. But I always felt like something was missing. Now you know. Now I've got more questions. He stood up. I gotta go, he said. But, thanks for not making this weird. I smiled, just barely. Too late for that. He snorted. Right. He took a step, paused, looked back. Does she want to meet me? She's terrified, I said. But yes. He nodded once. Then he left. I sat there a long time, thinking about all the things I didn't say. How scared Rose was. How broken she still felt. How badly I wanted this to work, and how little control I had over any of it. That night, I texted him. She wants to meet. Only if you're ready. He didn't reply. But he didn't block me either. Sometimes, that's enough. Rose didn't speak for a long time after I told her. We were sitting on her tiny balcony, the one that overlooked the alley and smelled like smoke and rain. I had just finished telling her about Evan, about the letters, the coffee shop, the conversation. He's not angry, I said. Not yet, anyway. She stared out at the wet pavement below, cigarette burning down between her fingers. I don't know what to say to him, she murmured. You don't have to say anything perfect. Just say something. She looked at me then, eyes older than they had any right to be. What if he hates me? I thought about it, then said, then at least he'll hate you honestly. We arranged the meeting for Saturday. Neutral ground. Margaret's house. Evan agreed. Didn't ask for anything special, just time and space. Rose wore a navy blue blouse I hadn't seen in years. She brushed her hair 3 times before we left, then changed her mind and tied it back. Her hands were shaking the whole drive. Margaret greeted us at the door with tea and silence. Evan showed up 15 minutes late, same hoodie, same wary eyes. He walked in like a man approaching a wild animal. Rose stood when he entered. Didn't speak. Just watched him like he might vanish if she blinked too hard. Hi, she said finally. Hey. That was it. The whole room held its breath. Then Evan sat across from her. They talked for an hour. Maybe more. Margaret and I stayed in the kitchen, pretending not to listen. But every so often I heard pieces, broken shards of memory. I held you once after they took you, snuck into the nursery before they kicked me out. I didn't know your name until last month. I wanted to find you. I just didn't know how to forgive myself first. Evan came into the kitchen when it was over. Looked drained, like he'd just walked out of a fire. She's not what I expected, he said. None of us are, I replied. She asked if she could hug me. Before I left. What did you say? He looked down. I let her. Then he walked out the front door, guitar case swinging at his side like a shield. Rose didn't cry. Not right away. But when we got home, she sat on the couch, curled up like she was trying to be smaller than the truth, and whispered, he smelled like baby powder. Just like when he was little. I sat beside her. We didn't talk about what came next. Not yet. But something had shifted. Something irreversible. That night, Evan texted me. I don't know if I'm ready to call her mom. But I'm not ready to walk away either. Evan didn't call for 2 weeks. Rose said nothing, but I saw it in her, the waiting. She left her phone on the table every night, screen up, volume high, like a lighthouse calling out to a ship that might never return. Then, out of nowhere, he texted. Can I come by? He arrived at dusk, his hoodie replaced by a faded flannel and that same guitar case slung over his shoulder. Rose answered the door, bracing like she expected a slap. Instead, he said, I want to understand. Everything. She nodded, stepped aside, and let him in. The 3 of us sat around the old coffee table. Rose had brought out a box, not the shoebox from before, but something bigger. Dusty. Taped shut with brittle yellow strips. These are yours, she said, pushing it toward him. Inside, every scrap she'd kept. Drawings he made in foster care. A hospital bracelet. His first shoes. Birthday cards she wrote and never sent. Letters. Dozens of them. Evan picked one up at random. The date said 2013. He read it aloud. You turned 6 today. I don't know if you like trucks or books or both. I hope you laugh loud. I hope someone baked you a cake. I hope, more than anything, that you feel loved. His voice cracked. He didn't look at her. Just picked up another. They said I couldn't send this. That it would confuse you. I think they were wrong. I think you deserve to know your mother never stopped loving you. He set it down. Then he stood up and walked out. Rose didn't move. Didn't cry. Just stared at the empty doorway like it had betrayed her. I gave him up twice, she said. First when they took him. And then every year I stayed silent. I didn't have words for that. So I sat beside her and said nothing at all. 2 days later, Evan came back. Didn't knock. Just walked in, box under his arm. I read them all, he said. Every letter. Rose turned, startled. I'm angry, he said. I won't lie about that. She nodded. I deserve it. But I'm not done with you. Not yet. She didn't smile. Just whispered, thank you. Later, as we sat on the balcony again, Evan gone, stars overhead, Rose lit a cigarette with hands that still trembled. I thought losing him broke me, she said. But not knowing if he'd hate me, that's what really did it. I didn't say what I was thinking, that sometimes, we get back what we lost, but never in the shape we left it. Evan texted again that night. Tell her I'll come back next week. Maybe we start small. Like coffee. Or silence. The week passed slow. Evan came over twice, once for coffee, once to sit on the floor and play old songs on his guitar while Rose folded laundry like her hands couldn't stop moving. No big talks. No breakdowns. Just, breath between them. Like two people learning a language without words. On the third visit, he brought an envelope. Found this in my dad's desk, he said, setting it on the table. Rose opened it slowly. Inside was a photo, worn, bent at the corners. A man. Early 20s. Smiling. Holding baby Evan. And standing beside him, arm wrapped around his waist, was Rose. She stared at it for a long time. Then quietly said, "That's not possible." Evan looked confused. "It was in my dad's drawer. Why wouldn't it be?" She shook her head, lips barely moving. "Because that's not your adoptive dad." I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard. "That man, his name was Aaron. He was Evan's father." The room tilted. Evan blinked. What? "He showed up after I gave birth," Rose said, voice trembling. "Said he wanted to help. That he'd changed. But then he disappeared again. I thought he left for good. But..." She looked at the photo, as if trying to time travel through it. "I never knew he got custody." Evan stood, face pale. "So you're telling me my entire life was, what? A lie?" "No," she whispered. "Just a mistake that never got fixed." He shook his head, started pacing. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "I didn't know," she said, tears welling. "If I had..." He cut her off. "He told me I was adopted. But he never said from who. I thought he was the one who saved me." "He raised you," I said gently. Maybe that was his way of making up for the past. Evan sat back down, hard. "He's gone now. Died 2 years ago. Heart attack." Rose's hand flew to her mouth. Oh God. Evan looked at her. So, what does that make you? She didn't flinch. Still your mother. He stared at her, jaw tight. Then nodded once. I need time. I know. He stood again, slung the guitar over his shoulder. As he walked toward the door, he turned to me. You ever wonder how different our lives would have been if someone just told the truth sooner? Every damn day, I said. He smirked, sad and tired. Me too. A month passed. Then one morning, Rose opened the front door to find a new photo on the mat. A snapshot, Evan and her, sitting on that balcony, both holding coffee mugs. Candid. Honest. On the back, in his scrawl. Started small. Still growing. No signature. Didn't need one.